Hello, everyone. Imagine having a treasure chest full of treasures that's locked and you don't have the key. This is pretty much what it's like to have a huge amount of data in your companies, but not being able to make any decisions based on it, not being able to essentially gain the insights from it. And today, we're going to find that key together. This session is on unlocking product insights with analytics. Next, please. My name is Merveen. I'm a customer success architect at Mixpanel. Mixpanel is a product analytics company. Although I work for Mixpanel, I promise you this is not going to be a pitch about Mixpanel. My goal, actually my mission, is to show you the value that product analytics can bring to your companies, to help you understand how to make decisions based on data, to help you understand how product analytics can be helpful to essentially understand how your users behave within your applications, to help you understand how to use data to drive growth, to drive retention, ultimately to drive revenue within your companies. Next, please. So why is it important? Why is product analytics important? It says here, all digital companies have data, but unfortunately, too many companies are not getting enough out of that data. So why that is? This is because most applications, your website or a mobile application, is designed to provide value to the user, but it's not really designed to give you insights on the user behavior. It's not really designed to help you, access reports based on user data. And this is where product analytics can really come in handy. A product analytics tool essentially collects all data from multiple sources based on your user behavior and allows you to really question that data, allows you to then understand user behavior better. And ultimately, based on this understanding, you can figure out how to drive more value in your application, how to essentially enhance user satisfaction within the application. Next, please. So product analytics can help uncover not only how the product is being used, but really why this product is being used. And based on this understanding, you can then make decisions internally, and the goal here is to use product analytics to essentially drive more value to the users within the application. Next, please. So product analytics gives your companies the information that you need to increase revenue and drive growth. Could it be that product analytics is the secret here to drive revenue and drive growth? Perhaps, but I certainly do think so. Next slide, please. Mixpanel conducted a survey a few years back now, a survey of 500 product leaders in the business. The results of that survey were quite surprising, to say the least. We uncovered that product teams were really struggling to prioritize features and measure impact within the business. So looking at impact, only 47% of the product leaders felt that they were able to use data to measure future launches, to measure campaigns that were running. 51% understood, were able to look at data to understand retention, what was bringing users back to the product. Conversion, 67% were understanding conversion rates, when and why users dropped off, and 48% understood engagement within the application. Ultimately, only 50% felt that they really understood, or they felt like they were unable to quickly get answers to the product questions that they had in general, which is really quite surprising. Next slide, please. So, product analytics helps you make decisions. How does that work? Next slide, please. I'm not sure if everyone can see this clearly, but with product analytics, you can make decisions better. You can make decisions faster. And to do that, product analytics gives teams within the company access to all the data that they need to first do some exploration on the data. So you would start by asking questions like, how do people use the product? How do people use the website? What makes them stick around? What drives them to get value out of the application? with that information, you can start collaborating. So in terms of collaboration, you would share this data with the team, and based on that data you can make decisions and start building with confidence. Next, you would learn from the decisions that you've made. Did a change that we made work? Did it not work? What should we be focusing more on? Or maybe what should we do less of? Then you go back into question mode, where you can ask more questions such as, how many active users do you have? Who are those users? And then go back into using that data back into exploration mode, and so on and so on. Next slide, please. So this is a comic strip that popped up in my inbox a few days ago, and I thought, you know what, this is really relevant to the conversation that we're going to have today. So this came from a newsletter from Andrew Chan, who works at A16Z. But this really talks about, in a company, whether you're data-driven or data-informed. Essentially, the difference is with data-driven, most decisions are made based on data. Data-informed is a combination of data, but also you trust your gut. As product managers, you have this intuition, you have this gut feeling, and a lot of decisions can be made on that as well. But essentially, whether you think you're data-driven or data-informed, product analytics can give you this extra edge, can really help you, understand and measure the decisions that you've made, and ultimately help you build better products. Next slide, please. Okay, so to really showcase the value of product analytics, I've chosen a use case as an example. This company is called Viber. Viber is a messaging platform, so it allows you to communicate with friends, with family, communicate with brands. Has anyone here heard of Viber? Yeah, okay, perfect. So, Viber use product analytics to understand engagement, and ultimately figure out how to increase engagement, figure out how to improve retention within the application, and really help product managers make quick, but also data-driven or data-informed decisions about the changes that they want to make. Next slide, please. Right, so the first insight here is that Viber uses product analytics to increase the overall messages sent. So if you look at the screen or the image from the application, they used data to focus on the keyboard feature within the application. So within the keyboard feature, the user was able to select a few of the buttons that were visible, but also there was a drop-down where they had additional buttons. So they used product analytics to understand how users were engaging with the different buttons within the keyboard. And next slide, please. And so they first started by measuring which buttons were the most popular. So they used, event tracking to see which buttons were being used the most. They used event tracking to understand how people actually interacted with the hidden buttons. And then they carried out A/B testing. They moved the positions of the buttons. They changed which buttons were visible to the users in order to understand which changes has the most impact on certain of their key metrics. Next slide, please. Oh, next. Some of the key metrics that they started looking at and realized that the changes they were making made a difference were the users were spending more time in the application. The users were having more frequent conversations. The speed to sending a message improved. So based on those metrics, they then came up with a final design. Next, please. And this final keyboard design, next please, essentially increased the overall messages sent by 15%. And for an application that has over 1 billion users around the world, 15% is really not an insignificant metric and needle to move. Next please. The second insight is that they had an increase in group chat creation. So within the application, users had the option to create groups. So they could do that by going into the home page, creating a group. They could also do that in a one-to-one chat. There used to be an option where they go into the settings, they create a group chat within the one-to-one chat. And next, please. So Vibra started understanding or looking at how users behave within the application. They had their funnels to understand the different user flows. They essentially looked at all the different actions that users were doing. And from there, they started focusing on group chat creation because they realized that people who were creating group chats tended to be more engaged within the application. So they compared group chat users with non-group chat users, and they used data to understand what were the steps that led to a group chat being created. Next, please. From those insights, they realized that users who created a group chat tend to be more sticky. They tended to have more conversations. They tended to be more valuable users within the application. So they then redesigned the group or the one-to-one chat interface to make it a lot easier for someone to create a group chat from the one-to-one interface. Once they did that, they realized that users became a lot more engaged, and that moved the needle on a specific metric. Next, please. And from there, they saw a 10% increase in group chat creation, and they saw that purely by enhancing or making that user flow that allowed them to create a group chat from a one-to-one message a little bit easier, a little bit faster, and making that create a group chat button a bit more visible to the user. Next, please. And the final insight here that I wanted to share was that they saw an increase from external sources. So they did an analysis to understand how users, essentially what users were doing once they opened the app. A lot of users would open the app and start a chat, but they did realize that quite a huge number of their users were using the application to share pictures, to share links from it, for example. And so based on that, they then redesigned the interface to allow users to be able to essentially have a button that would get them to share an image or anything else quite easily from the keyboard function itself. Next, please. And from there, they saw that with the changes that they've made, they had a 9% increase in sharing from external sources, which again, looking at the user base, over 1 billion users, 9%, that's quite a huge shift. Next, please. Okay, great. So we've looked at the use case. Now, I would like to dive deeper into how would you define your goals and metrics within the business to essentially help you figure out what to track and move the needle on some of those metrics. Next, please. So we start by having a measurement framework. I'm sure a lot of you have your own measurement framework within your companies. The measurement framework essentially allows you to have a set of metrics and KPIs that's used within the business that everyone agrees those are the metrics that you want to be able to move the needle on. Those are the metrics that everyone cares about. Those are the objectives of the product, the objectives of the business, and it just helps align different teams, different departments towards this shared goal and shared vision. Next, please. This is an example of a framework that was created by Mixpanel a few years back. Essentially, this framework allows you to structure how you think about your metrics and your KPIs. So I'll walk you through a little bit about how it works. You will start with your focus metrics. Your focus metric is what matters most to your business. What is the thing that drives value to your users? If you improve this number, will the product's long-term performance improve? Once you have this focus metric, you then break this down into your level 1 metrics. Your level 1 metrics are reach, activation, engagement, retention, and business specific. And once you have those level 1 metrics clear, you can then break that further into your level 2 metrics, where you can break this down by platform, region, segment, or feature. Now, this whole framework, I will be talking more in detail about this in the workshops that we have planned for tomorrow, but next slide, please. For today's purpose, I thought, how can we make this easier? Let's say, you don't really have a framework, or you're not too sure how to begin creating a framework. Next, please. So, you start with the focus metric. Again, understanding what drives value to your users within the business. Next, please. From there, you have your activation. activation is how quickly the users get to value. So from the moment they sign up, from the moment they first open the app, how quickly do they do this meaningful action within your products? Next, please. Engagement, how many valuable actions are they doing? So what are the key things that you want those users to be doing? How often do they do that? Next, please. And finally, retention. You know what are those valuable actions, but do they keep coming back? Do they keep coming back on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? Next, please. Right, so focus metric. Let's dive into what is a focus metric. So I mentioned the value moment. The value moment is what, is the thing that you want users to be doing. What is the thing that the product that you work with has been designed to do? Next, please. From the value moment, it's also important to understand what is the natural frequency of that action. Next, please. And what is the natural frequency? Let's look at a few examples of companies that we know about to understand for those companies what is the value moment and what is the natural frequency. Next, please. So for TikTok, the value moment, is watch content. This is what they want users to do. Users to watch content within the application. Next, please. For Mixpanel, it's report created. So a user creates a report. That's a value moment. For Audible, a user listens to a piece of content. That's a value moment. And for Airbnb, a user would make a booking. Next, please. So think about the natural frequency. A user watching a content on TikTok, they kind of want the users to be doing that on a daily basis. And for them, this is how users get value. For Mixpanel, you would probably be creating a report or consuming a report on a weekly basis. For Audible, you might be listening to a piece of content on a monthly basis. And for Airbnb, you might be taking a trip once a year and use Airbnb to make that trip. So for them, those are, the focus metric that drives the business, the focus metric that indicates someone gets value out of the product. Now, from the focus metric, we can go into activation. How quickly are users getting value from the product? You can skip a few and go towards the end. So with new users, what leads them to getting value? So we have a new user that opened the app for the first time, that arrived on the application from a messaging or marketing campaign. Let's understand what is the thing that we want them to do and what are the steps that gets them there. Once you measure those 2 points, you can start figuring out in between what are the changes that you can make to essentially drive the metric that you want to measure or the conversion to this value moment. So things that you can do are, for example, to make it easier to create an account, to offer guided onboarding to the user, to have prompts and hints within the application, or to just help with content discovery and ultimately drive the user to this value moment. And in order to do that, you will remove barriers to entry for your product, make it as easy as possible to use. Next, please. And to do that, you would track essentially the action that is the first thing that the users do. You would track the value moment and use that to measure product usage, run tests, have releases, do the updates, and measure how those work as well. The next metric is engagement. How many valuable actions are users doing in the product? So why are my most active users being active? What features do they engage with the most? And with product analytics, you have the data to be able to track the features that users engage with. You have the data to be able to understand why certain features are not popular or why other features are more popular than others. But always, you will track those actions per user. So using a product analytics tool allows you to understand actions per user and also bucket those into different cohorts. So you can have your casual cohort, you can have your core cohort and your power cohort. I'll give an example with TikTok. For them, a casual user is someone that's been active less than 4 days over the last 28 days. For a core user, someone that's been active between 4 and 15 days over the last 28 days, and a power user, someone that's been active over 16 days over the last 28 days. Next, please. Next, yeah. So here you have your casual users. And with product analytics, what's great is that you can understand, from data, what makes a cool user, what makes a power user. From there, you take your casual users and figure out what do they actually need to do, or how to get them to do the behavior that could lead them to become a cool user. And similarly, you can take your cool users and understand what you need to do that could lead them to become your power users. And all that is based on being able to track the right data, being able to track those user actions, and understanding a little bit better those three categories of users. Next, please. Finally, with retention. Are my users coming back to my application? And if they do, why are they coming back? Retention metric is based on the core behavior that correlates to long-term retention. Next, please. And using TikTok again as an example, so when thinking about retention, there's two types of perspectives. One is on watching videos, so the frequency here is daily, which I talked about before. The core behavior would be view video feeds. The persona that they were looking at is with users. And the retention metric is daily active user, where an active user is someone that has viewed a video. Similarly with creating videos, frequency is weekly, the core behavior is someone posting a video. The persona is the creator's persona, and retention metric is weekly active creator, where the active part is someone posting a video. Next, please. So one more thing that you can do is understand your dormant users. Next, please. Essentially, a dormant user is someone that had been active in the application, but they certainly saw value at some point in time, but then something happened, they were not active anymore. So you would categorize those users as someone that's a dormant user, and the objective here is to understand what can you do to change the behavior from being a dormant user to a resurrected user. So here, resurrection is users who are activated, established habits, but became dormant, and then using product analytics, you can then understand what is the behavior that you can drive, what are the things that you can do, such as a messaging campaign, or different type of features or other parts of the product that would turn them into a resurrected user, showing that they started getting value again from the application. Next, please. We can go to the end of that one, actually. So, how do we put that into practice? We talked about your focus metric, so let's think about the focus metric. You could have your weekly active users. From there, we break this down into your level 1 metrics. So, over here we have account created, key actions completed, key actions per user, and your retention, weekly retention, and resurrected users. Next, please. From those level 1 metrics, you would understand what do you need to do to remove the barrier to value. When you figure this out, then you can use the data to understand whether the changes that you're making is affecting the level 1 metric, which is your account created and key action completed. Similarly, you would, with your key actions per user, you would drive key actions and convert those casual cohorts to cool cohorts. Making those changes, then you would look back at your level 1 metric, understand if that made a change. Finally, with retention, so bringing users back to create more value, understanding what you can do to keep them engaged, keep them coming back. This drives the retention metric. And ultimately, those 3 level 1 metrics, if the needle moves on those metrics, technically that should increase your focus metric as well, so your weekly active user. And the point here is that you're starting from the top, have your level 1 metrics, and changes on each of those level 1 metrics, then tie back into your focus metric. Next, please. So, I mentioned the actions that you do, ties into your level 1 and back into the focus metric. Next, please. It does sound, simple. That's because it is, and having that framework just helps you structure that thought process, helps everyone in the business understand how different initiatives, different projects, how the work that you're all doing can contribute to those key metrics that you have within the business. Next, please. Right. So I want to leave you with a 5-step action plan that I think can be relevant to companies of any sizes, but it just helps you set the right foundation to be successful with product analytics. So first of all, start simple, baby steps. Start with a simple use case. So ask one practical question that you think is relevant to the business. For example, what is the conversion between a new user and being a registered user? just a quick example. And to do that, you would start by tracking simple events, such as there's a sign-up event, or a purchase event, an add to cart event, but understanding what is the minimum number of events you can track to be able to answer that question. From there, implement those minimum number of events. Sorry, previous slide please. And gain insights. You would build a report, see how, see the value that you're getting with those small number of events, share that within the business, start getting some insights. Next please. Second is to implement data governance. So you then, have a small number of events, you start getting insights. The next thing to think about is a data governance best practice. Understand where data lies within the business. What are the different sources? Perhaps you have client-side data, perhaps you have a server with really interesting server-side data. Or you could have the data warehouse where data warehouse has clean, trustworthy data, but accessing that data is quite difficult. You need to rely on a data team, on an analyst team to be able to do that, and answers take ages to get to. So understanding the sources helps you then figure out how to then bring that data into your product analytics tool and get insights from it. Making sure that your data model, you understand your how the data is structured in those different sources, and also looking at the security protocols like PII, making sure that you're getting data that has been vetted, that doesn't really contain anything that should exist within your analytics tool. So the second step, implement data governance. Next please. Third is to democratize product analysis. So essentially giving everyone in the business access to data. So data shouldn't really be locked into this treasure chest that I showed before. I believe everyone in the business should be able to have access to data. Everyone in the business should be able to quickly get answers to the questions that you have. So here, make data accessible and understandable for everyone. And the goal there is to reduce reliance on data teams. Not that, it's not critical to be able to answer specific questions from the data team, but if something takes a matter of days for you to be able to get the answer, where with a tool like Mixpanel, for example, you can do that within a few clicks, that just helps you make these decisions faster and ultimately help improve that decision-making process. The action there is to appoint an internal champion for onboarding and training. It's always good to have someone in the business that can be the focal point for discussions about analytics, discussions about data, and they understand what are the things that you track, and help other people understand those same valuable things as well. And breaking down silos, making sure that everyone within the business is able to use self-serve analytics. Next, please. Build a culture around experimentation, so giving everyone access to that data for real-time decision-making, being able to encourage experimentation, encourage people trying things, capturing that data, understanding if they're having an impact or not. And the outcome is to be able to make decisions faster and to be able to have continuous improvement within the application. Next, please. Incremental rollout, I always recommend to start small. So you start with a single team, understand what are the key metrics that this team wants to track, and from there have your goals, measure and validate the impact of that team. And most importantly, once you've had some success, sharing that same success within the business, showcasing how product analytics can really help things get better, help you make decisions better, and from there share learnings. And the hope is that other teams as well would start adopting and appreciate the answers that you can get with product analytics. Next, please. So this is not really a step, but this is once you've gone through those 5 steps, how to scale the practice. Really, this cannot stay within one specific team. It needs to be adopted company-wide, and there you can leverage leadership to integrate product analytics in the key meetings that you have. Integrate data from analytics into your monthly stand-ups. Integrate data analytics within your rituals, within different practices within the business, to really show everyone within the business that they can also have access to data. That data should be for everyone to use, to question, and essentially get value. Next, please. So, if you found thoughts and takeaways, start small, identify your key metrics, your focus metrics, your level 1 metrics, activation, engagement, retention. Really track the minimum amount of data based on your metrics. So you start with your metrics first and understand what's the minimum amount of events that you need to track to be able to gain those answers. I see a lot of companies that start with tracking everything possible, then you end up with a huge mess. No one really understands the data, then you have to walk backwards to understand what metrics or what questions can you answer based on that data. So starting from your metrics first and then tracking the right events is a better approach. Build a report, share those insights with your team members, with other people in the business, celebrate and repeat that same process. Next please. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be outside. Any questions? Don't hesitate to find me. I'm with my friends from Intera as well. If you have any questions in Turkish, they are more than happy to help. But yeah, thank you, and see you later. Thank you very much.